Well, hello, guys and gals. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 108. And today's episode was inspired by a meme. I seldom get inspired by a meme to do a show segment or a Miyagi Mornings episode or anything like that. But I did today. And the meme was fairly clever. It had a couple headlines from the New York Times saying that you should not do your own research. When it comes to science and health, do not go down the rabbit hole. Critical thinking is dangerous. And someone had taken those headlines, little screenshots of them, and put them onto a picture. And then at the bottom of that picture popped in a photo of George Orwell, famously known for, among other things, the book 1984, about extreme totalitarianism, the eventual place that all states are headed towards. A state heads toward totalitarianism because a state seeks to replicate it to protect itself, like an entity. It seeks to grow and it seeks to survive above all things, and therefore all it can do is get bigger over time. And if a state gets bigger, then its rules, its laws, and its controls grow. That would be critical thinking if you were able to sort that out. But in that book, a quote that's not often actually looked at, that probably should be more from that book, was the following. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command. The second part of that is really important based on today's subject. Their final and most essential command. Let me put it to you this way. There's a war on about every aspect of freedom in the world. Every time a new license is created, something that people were somehow able to do for thousands and thousands of years, now needs the government stamp of approval for you to do it. And they want to license and permit everything so that they can control and regulate everything. They want to make sure there is not a speck of commerce that can go by without them getting their grubby little hands in there and taxing it. They have a cabal formed with the oligarchs and the technocrats for total and complete control of humanity. But why would then you do not believe the evidence of your own eyes and ears be their final and most essential command? It is because this is the one war they either win or lose everything by. All the other battles, all the other wars, all the other skirmishes come down to, can you convince the masses to ignore the evidence of their own eyes and ears and believe the message of the state or the messenger of the state, no matter how much in conflict that is with logic and reason? If you can do that, you can bring a society to total, complete control. If you don't do that, you will run the cycle that every megastate has ever run. You will start with a small, free state. You will grow into a semi-totalitarian state. You will grow into a full totalitarian state, and then you will collapse under your own weight, and the cycle will continue. It is not that the agenda of ultimate growth and control is not doable as a thing unto itself. It is individuals who think critically who are the greatest danger to such a state. Because critical thinkers, over time, as people get more and more disenfranchised, they keep being promised, well, if we just had this power, then you'd be happy. If we just had this power, then you'd be happy. If we just had this power, the rich will finally pay their fair share, etc. And it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen. There's a discontent among the true believers. And the critical thinker among them, this is why Stalin sent so many people to Siberia and put so many bullets in so many heads. We're like a virus. Because what we say makes sense. And even the most asleep, eventually, when they become so discontented with their surroundings, begins to follow the same process and start to ask questions. And questions lead to answers, and answers lead to no longer believing things in spite of what you see and what you hear. So what I wanted to give you today is my 5 rules for critical thinking. Rule number 1. Assume anyone and anything that you hear is a lie. You have to start out from the assumption that what you're being told is not true. Or that it at least is not completely true. Because you will find that in most instances, anybody telling you anything, even someone on your side, whatever the hell that means, is not completely true. So we must begin with the assumption that the thing, the claim, whatever it is untrue. But we also must reserve within ourselves the possibility that it might be true. In other words, the preponderance of evidence is always from the beginning that the thing is a lie, but we could be wrong. Okay? I know that's hard to get your head around, because the next one is going to drive home what makes it so hard. You'll find it really easy when the claim is in opposition to what you already believe, whatever your perception and confirmation biases already say. So step 2, you have to determine what you want the truth to be. So we're going to assume the claim is a lie, and regardless of what the claim is, do I want the claim to be true or false? Because I could assume it's a lie, but I want it to be true. I could assume it's a lie, and I could want it to be false. I need to know where I'm at with that. Step 3, I now need to build a case against my bias. I need to go out and find all the information that I can that disproves the claim as being the way I wish it to be. If I wish for the claim to be true, I must first attempt to prove it false. If I wish the claim to be false, I must first attempt to prove it to be true. Regardless of the fact that I've already assumed that it's a lie. You got it? So first, we assume it's a lie, or it's at least not the total truth. 2, we determine what we want to be the truth. 3, we build a case counter to our own desire. And we build the strongest case that we can. I want you to think about it like this. Let's say you were a defense attorney. Your job is to provide your client with the best defense under the law. You actually think he's guilty, but your job is to provide him with the best defense possible. To overturn every rock, to look under everything, to look at every technicality, to do everything you can to prove your client not guilty. Understand that. Your job as a defense attorney is not to prove your client innocent, it is to prove him not guilty. That the preponderance of the evidence is not sufficient to convict. And you do if you're good, you do everything you can to get that outcome. So you pretend that your opinion is the prosecutor and you're defending the defendant. And you build the best case you can. And you know what you do when you realize, like, okay, I've done everything I can to prove myself wrong. Now you go be the prosecutor. Now you build a case. This is your 4th step, right? We're going to build a case against the argument we just built. Now I'm going to go try to prove what I wanted to believe in the first place is true. It's very important that I build the oppositional case first. I will not survive the process as a critical thinker if I take my own side first. I won't. I have to immediately doubt myself, even before I doubt the source. And then once I build the counterclaim, I need to sit back and I need to go into Vulcan mode like we talked about, right? Vulcan mode like we talked about during the real estate episode on Monday. Dispassionate, with total disregard for my emotions, wants, and needs. And now I evaluate the 2 cases that I've built myself, because I can trust, no matter how much I can't trust myself, I can trust myself more than I can trust these other parties. And now, like a judge rendering a verdict that has been cleverly and completely and articulately argued by 2 gifted counselors, I will render my final opinion. And understand that the judges in the end render opinions, not rulings. They're taken as rulings, they're enforced as rulings, but since the judge himself is a man, and men are fallible, or a woman, okay? I know that upsets some people. Okay. Since the judge is a human, all that it can render, all that he or she can render, and I'm not giving you any more than he or she, there's two genders, sorry guys, I'm rendering that opinion, is an opinion. Courts render opinions. And opinions are subject that future information may alter them. A ruling would be a true law, a natural law, like gravity. You drop shit, it falls. We may not really understand what gravity is, but there are inherent, intrinsic reality laws in relation to gravity. If you drop something, it falls. Yeah, very simple. What if it's lighter than air? Well, that's not actually what it is, but okay, I get what you're saying. If you drop something that has sufficient mass, it falls. That's a law of gravity. We're not going to change our opinion on that. But we may change our opinion on the law by which it happens. And this is how you have to render an opinion on a thing. Because someone may present you with information in the future that would alter your opinion. And this is, I'm going to show you exactly right now a concrete example from the news of how the media refuses to do its job. This is the process that we used to call journalism. What I just gave you is the process of journalism. This is what every story that's regurgitated and spit out by entities like the New York Times should go through, or it's not journalism, it's not news, it's propaganda. Got it? We have to go through this process because they won't do it for us. An example right now. Gee, guess what? It looks highly likely like this whole COVID shit was started by a virus being released from a lab in Wuhan. Now, the reason the journalists didn't come to that being at least a possible conclusion and silenced and screamed and shrieked at anybody that said otherwise was because of two things. First, was basing their opinion on, rather than research, a fallacy known as an appeal to authority fallacy. Well, Fauci says so. Who gives two shits what Fauci says? I don't. I never have. When you got a guy that's been a bureaucrat for 40 years, his opinion should be relegated to below the opinion we started these rules with. Basically, if you take a shit in the woods, the thing that eats the shit you leave behind should have a higher relevance of opinion than a 40-year bureaucrat. I don't care what they're in. So that was one problem. But the other was Trump derangement syndrome. They're actually admitting it now, but they're trying to use it to cover their ass. They're like, well, we had every reason to doubt it because Trump had given up all his credibility by then. So what you're saying is because you hated this person, because you had decided everything this person had to be a lie, you refused to do your job. And now you're using that person as cover for your refusal to do your job. And I could keep going. And this is not about COVID. This is about every claim these sons of bitches make every freaking day. That's why rule number one, you must assume that everything that you're told by every source is a lie or at least not the whole truth. Real simple. Then what do you want to be true? And then build a case what you want first, and then build a case for what you wanted second, and then and only then render an opinion that is subject to change by future information like, oh gee, look at all this information about the Wuhan lab. And most of that information, friends and neighbors, has been available since almost the beginning. We had a young woman, I can't remember her full name, a Chinese doctor, researcher, been working on the virus in China since it started, who came on national TV at great personal risk to her own life and the safety of her family and said, it was built in a lab. And they said, shut up! Shut up! And now they're like, oh, well, look at this little piece of information over here. Oh, that you suppressed. Because why? You have to assume everything you're told is either a lie or not the full truth. Because there are agendas. Everybody has an agenda. The only way you can be a true critical thinker is for the time that you are making a determination on an issue to take your little agenda and shove it up your ass. No, I'm kidding. To take your little agenda, package it up in a box, sit it over here on the shelf. And when you're done with the process, your biases, your agenda, the things that you believe in your heart, your spirituality, your religion, your party allegiance, all of it, it's not gone. You can go right back over here and you can put it back inside yourself so you feel all complete like a human again. Right? Because some humans, we need those things. But during the examination, this must be done. This must be done. It must be based on, I have evidence for or against the following things. And the most logical conclusion for the time is X. X is subject to alteration, to complete and total reversal. to amendment. X is subject to so many things, but until such time as I'm presented with greater evidence for X or against X than I have at this time, this is the opinion I'll have. It is the thing that they do not teach in our schools. I went to school almost 40 years ago, right? Holy crap. At a time when we were taught far more an actual education than the indoctrination children are given today. The schools were better when I was a kid. Absolutely. I was never taught to think like this in school. And I bet you people that are 30 years older than me were never taught to think like this in school. I don't think there's probably many people alive that were ever taught to think this way. This is basically one of the spokes that comes off of the core that is the trivium method of education, which hasn't really been taught for hundreds of years. Why? Why? Because critical thinking is dangerous to them. I invite you to be a true human, a feral human. And feral humans are dangerous. It's okay to be dangerous. I'll leave you with this. I picked this up from my buddy John Bush. You know, you have people telling you to stay safe. Every time somebody tells me to stay safe, I respond with, stay free. Stay free, my friends. I will be back with another episode tomorrow.